In early 2021, my partner Kimberly was working full-time in a hospital as a medical social worker. She was burned out from her job and knew she wanted to quit and become a full-time coach, but wasn't sure the right time to do it. Quitting too early could lead to disaster, draining her savings or keeping her stuck at a 9-to-5 for years. On the other hand, she knew she couldn't last too much longer in her job, and she wasn't sure what to do. If you're a coach like Kimberly and you've ever wondered whether you should quit your 9-to-5 and go all in on your coaching business, keep watching, because this might be one of the most important videos you see all year. So as a business coach, I've helped thousands of coaches launch and grow their businesses, and have helped many navigate the journey of figuring out whether to leave their job and go full time. And when I'm advising a coach on this, there are really 5 key things that I share with them to help them figure out whether they should leave their job and also when the right time is to do it. So I wanna share these 5 things with you, and my hope is in sharing them with you, they're gonna help you get some clarity on what you should do next and what's really the right next step for you. So the first big thing that I believe should influence whether you leave your job and also when you leave your job is how much traction you currently have in your coaching business. The truth is, launching and growing a coaching business takes time. This is a process, and it takes time to get clear on those foundational pieces, your niche and your offer, and build your audience and attract leads and clients. So it's usually gonna take at least a couple months to start to see some traction, and that's a couple months of consistent effort. Oftentimes it takes longer than that to really start to create sustainable success as a coach. So if you are in the early days of building your coaching business, you haven't signed your first client yet, you haven't gotten clear on the foundations, your niche, your offer, some of those pieces are still murky for you, generally my recommendation is to spend some time figuring those things out while you have the stability of your job and that income coming in before you take the leap. On the other hand, if you already have those pieces in place and maybe you've been running your business on the side for a while and you're seeing momentum and progress and you feel like things are moving in the right direction, then generally I'm much more inclined to say, okay, leaving your job makes sense for you at this stage of your journey. Now, by the way, if you are a coach who's in the early stages of your business and you're looking for a roadmap that you can follow in order to get on track to signing consistent clients and just get those foundations in place in your business so you can get on track to leave your 9-to-5 faster, I put together a free client attraction guide that walks through so much of my best advice to help you do this. You can get it completely free. Just click the link above or in the description down below. The second thing that I think should determine whether or not you leave your job and when you leave your job is how much you have in savings and also what financial support, if any, you have. 2 kind of different things, and we can talk about both of these things. So the truth is, when you are growing a business in the early days, income's gonna be a little inconsistent. And there are gonna be months that are really good and months that are not so good. And so having some level of financial cushion, savings in the bank, can help you ride out some of that initial instability before your business gets to a place where things stabilize and you've got more income coming in the door more consistently to be able to cover your expenses. Generally, I would recommend having at least 6 months in savings if you're gonna jump ship from your job, especially if your coaching business is still unstable and things are really in the early days. On the other hand, I work with a lot of coaches who have partners or spouses, so they've got dual income going. And so maybe if you leave your job, it doesn't mean that things are gonna be in dire straits if you only have that one income coming in from your partner. That could be enough to cover all that you guys need. And so if you're in that position, I'm much more inclined to say, well, go for it. You've got that support of your partner, and that's gonna help you ride out some of the bumps in the early days. So a lot of this really does depend on where you're at financially. The truth is, when I look back over the businesses that I've run, having that financial cushion, having savings in the bank, has really helped me in the early days. Sometimes I see a lot of business coaches talk about this narrative of like, jump and the net will appear. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Sometimes you do need to take a leap. And sometimes, the circumstances are not like perfectly aligned for you to do that, but it's just the right thing to do. And for every person like that who jumps and the net appears, I think there's a lot of other people who jump and maybe the net doesn't appear. So I think it's really important just to be pragmatic about like having enough of that financial stability in place so that you can ride out some of those bumps initially until your coaching business becomes more stable. Third thing that I think should influence whether you quit your 9-to-5 and also when you quit your 9-to-5 is your existing skills and background in running a business. The people who have more of these skills in place coming in to launching or growing their coaching business are gonna move faster. When I became a business coach, I had already been running a coaching business for years, and I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't when it comes to building building and growing businesses. And that allowed me to sidestep and skip so many of the challenges and issues that new coaches face. And so if you're in the early days of growing your business and you don't have that experience, that's fine. It doesn't mean you can't create success, but it means the road is gonna be a little bit bumpier for you, because running a business is a whole new set of skills. Just manage your own schedule. If you've been in a 9 to 5 and maybe you're in a situation where you kind of have somebody else who's determining to a larger extent what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, like, it is a skill to learn about time management and how to structure your days and how to hold yourself accountable. All these things for a lot of newer coaches are things that need to be developed and cultivated. And it takes some time to do that. And so if you don't have those skills coming into running your business, that's okay. I don't want this to be discouraging. I've helped so many coaches who haven't had those skills in place before, they joined our Coach in Launchpad program or started working with me to help them grow their businesses, and they created awesome success. And generally, it does take a little bit more time for those folks than the folks, I'm thinking of some of my clients who have come in who already had backgrounds in sales or who had some, experience running a business. Those people generally move a lot faster. And so I'm much more inclined to say to that person, like, go for it, take a leap, versus the person who's brand new, they've never run a business before and they're ready to quit their 9 to 5 tomorrow. I'm like, maybe we should just build this up on the side so that you've got that stability in place while you're growing your business, and you can take the leap maybe a couple months down the line. By the way, if you're finding this video helpful, click the like button down below and let us know. The fourth thing that I think should determine whether or not you leave your job and when you leave your job is how unhappy you are at your current job. This is not like a rational thing, right? And if we just look at it like rationally, like, it may not make sense for you to leave your job, but you're just miserable. And every single day you show up in your job just feeling like you're throwing away your life at this job that you hate is just eating you alive. And if that's the case, then maybe it does make sense to leave earlier. And maybe, we talk a little bit more about this later, you can get creative and figure out other ways to bring in some side income while you're working on building the coaching business. Lots of different things that we can do to get creative, but staying stuck in a situation that you're really unhappy with is a terrible way to live your life. And so if you're really miserable in your job today, sometimes, you might not have the perfect circumstances, but you're like, hey, I just want to take a leap here. And I would encourage you, that if you're in that place, there are so many options that we have available. Oftentimes we just don't even acknowledge that they exist. So getting really creative, sitting down and asking myself, like, if I wanted to leave my job within the next 30 days, how would I do it? And just doing some journaling on how to actually make that happen. You can come up with all sorts of possibilities. I don't recommend that you stay stuck in a situation that you're miserable at. Much rather see you go out and get another job. And at least maybe you can be a little bit happier working for somebody else while you're working on building your coaching business on the side. It might take a little bit longer, sure, but sometimes that can be a great way to go too. So how happy you are, how unhappy you are at your job is gonna determine to a significant extent what I tell people in terms of like, here's what I would do if I were in your shoes. And finally, number 5 is your tolerance for risk. There are people that I meet who are so happy to just like jump off the deep end into the shark tank. I love that. I'm not like fully that person. I mean, I've taken a lot of risks in my life. As I've grown my coaching business, I've become more comfortable with that. I'm maybe somewhere in between like those two worlds. I kind of grew up with a little bit more of a conservative mindset around taking some risks. And in some ways that served me, in some ways it hasn't. But depending on who you are and just how you're wired, you might be more comfortable taking risks. And maybe, just that whole idea of like leap and the net will appear really appeals to you. And that's just how you live your life. And if that's you, I want to celebrate that. And if that's not you, I also want to encourage you to live your life in a way that is in alignment with what's going to feel good for you. And that might mean, playing more of the safe way of like building the business up on the side while you're working a 9 to 5. And that's totally okay too. I don't think there's like a right or wrong here, but a lot of this comes down to just knowing yourself and who you are. I think a lot of this too is just trusting in your own resourcefulness. Like if you do take a leap and things don't go as you expected, trusting in your own ability to figure it out. And that's, I think, something that can be cultivated and can make you feel more comfortable taking that leap and taking those risks, even when maybe, circumstances aren't like perfectly in place for you to do that. But at the end of the day, I think we have different risk tolerances. Like we're all wired slightly differently in this area. And so just asking yourself, like, what is my appetite, my tolerance for risk? And how can I use that to be my barometer in terms of how I think about making this decision? And finally, when it comes to taking a leap, this idea of quitting your 9-to-5, launching, going all in on your coaching business, oftentimes the real solutions aren't necessarily black and white. Often business coaches like me tend to paint this very black and white narrative around quitting a 9-to-5. Like it's just a binary. It's like you're stuck at a 9-to-5 you hate, or you quit your job and you go all in on your coaching business. And those are the only two options. The truth is, for most of the people that I work with, the solutions are often in between. It's the coach who might quit their full-time 9-to-5 and find a part-time job somewhere else to create some supplementary income so that they can actually focus on building their coaching business while still having that coming in the door. The coach who has the conversation with their boss who says, hey, is there any possibility to drop things down to part-time here? There are so many different ways that you can get creative and figure out different solutions to solve problems that aren't necessarily like conventional black and white. And I would encourage you to reflect on this, just doing some journaling, sitting down and asking yourself, if I want to get out of this job, how can I do this in a way that doesn't involve, putting me or my family at risk? How can I get creative and figure out how to spend as much time as possible doing the thing that I really want to do, which is building my coaching business, while at the same time making sure I've got money coming in the door? You just ask yourself these questions. Most people don't ask. They don't actually sit down and they ask these questions. They just spend all day complaining about how miserable they are. And so they don't actually get to tap into those creative solutions. But this is something that you can do. Just journaling on those questions will give you so many possibilities. And the last thing I want to share here is that, look, we spend a lot of time talking about like the rational, the intellectual way of thinking through this in this video. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of this comes down to trusting yourself and trusting your heart. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you already have an intuitive sense of what you should do. And maybe you're watching this video hoping that I'll validate that, or hoping that I'll tell you, yeah, you should do that, or maybe you shouldn't do that. The problem is most people don't trust themselves. I struggle with this too. I think everybody does. But really, if you tap into your own inner source of wisdom, that's going to be the best guide. Going back to my partner, Kimberly, she took a leap. She ended up leaving her full-time job as a medical social worker and launching her coaching business. And she'll tell you it was one of the best decisions she ever made. She's so grateful for everything that she learned through that transition. And it wasn't easy. There were many, nights that we spent at the kitchen table where she was really upset about something, or something was, really not working in the coaching business. And there was some stress and there was all of that. And she looks back on that time and she's like, thank God I did that, because I became so much more of who I really wanted to be through that experience. And so trusting in that and knowing that whatever decision you make, it's exactly the right decision for you. And you're going to learn and you're going to grow through this experience and you're going to become so much more. And so whatever decision you make, I trust that it's the perfect decision for you. Now, one of the biggest keys to success here when it comes to quitting your 9-to-5, going full-time as a coach, is making sure that you've got the foundations in place in your coaching business to be able to attract clients. And so if you're wanting clarity on that, if you're wanting a roadmap that you can follow to get you on track to signing 2, 3, or 4 high-paying coaching clients month after month, which for most coaches is enough to replace their 9-to-5 income and go full-time as a coach, I recommend that you download my free client attraction guide. Walks through so much of my best advice when it comes to making this happen in your coaching business. And you can get it completely free by clicking the link above or in the description down below. And if you love this video, you're definitely gonna love that one too. So click the link on the screen to go check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.